very warm welcome, viewers. I'm Malcolm Waira and welcome to another episode of Infocus. Tonight we hold discussions with the Worldbank Country Manager Khwima Nthara. We discuss the work Worldbank does in assisting Papua New Guinea overcome its development challenges and achieve its development aspirations. Khwima Nthara, thank you for joining us.
It's a great pleasure to be with you tonight.
Khwima, could you give us a brief historical background and the core missions of the World Bank?
Thank you very much, Malcolm. So the World Bank is like a large cooperative. It was formed in 1944, initially by 38 member countries to help rebuild Europe and Japan after the Second World War. That mission has now evolved. Its mission now is to help its member countries to improve the lives of their people, in particular in the developing world. It's got a membership of 189 countries now. Papua New Guinea joined the World Bank in October of 1975, soon after independence. Now, let me just also emphasize one point. The mission is to help improve the lives of its member countries, but in a livable planet. This second part of our mission has come as a result of the threat of climate change. So we're not just trying to help the member countries improve the lives of their people by reducing poverty, but also by ensuring that they are in a livable planet where it's comfortable to live.
So is it part of the UN system as well?
Yes, so it is a member of the UN system. It's not like one of the core UN organizations that you know about, like UNDP, but we are part of the United Nations system.
I understand the World Bank is focused on 3 specific areas of support in Papua New Guinea. Could you briefly elaborate on them?
So that's right. In trying to support our member countries, we put together what is known as a country partnership framework. This is a document that guides us in terms of how we can support a member country. In Papua New Guinea, we've got a country partnership framework that was prepared in 2019. We, in consultation with the government and other stakeholders, identified 3 main focus areas. The first one is to help Papua New Guinea ensure that there is a stable macroeconomic environment and there's fiscal resilience. The second is to ensure that Papua New Guinea is able to develop and provide more services, especially in those underserved areas. And the third one is to promote private sector growth, especially in the non-resource sectors. So those are the 3 key focus areas. The logic is very simple. If we're going to help Papua New Guineans to improve their livelihoods, one of the key pathways is to improve their access to jobs and services. So the first focus areas helps to create a conducive environment so that you create economic opportunities that will create jobs. The second focus area tries to provide key services such as education, such as utilities, so that people are not only empowered to take full advantage of these opportunities, but also that you are able to create those job opportunities. So by removing constraints to infrastructure, for example, businesses are able to start up their operations, thereby creating more jobs, thereby helping reduce poverty. Similarly, under the third pillar, which is trying to improve private sector-led growth, especially in the non-resource sectors, the purpose there is to help Papua New Guinea try to diversify its economy away from the extractives to other sectors with a lot of potential, for example, in agriculture, where you are able to create job opportunities for the youth so that they are able to get employment, so that farmers are able to improve productivity, so that they increase their incomes. So those are the 3 areas where we're involved in.
It's good you mentioned infrastructure. A key sector where the support from infrastructure goes through is the transport sector. So a prime example of the one particular specific program is the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Project Phase 2. Could you give us an update on this particular project?
Thank you very much. So this is a project that has been running for the last 12 years. I'm happy to say that we reached completion in April this year. We've been able to rehabilitate about 230 kilometers of roads, but we've also been able to repair and upgrade 50 bridges. So now we're in the final phases of just ensuring that the whole project is completely closed, but otherwise it's been a very successful project here in Papua New Guinea.
Another example would be the Resilient Transport Project. Is this a separate project from the existing road maintenance and rehabilitation project phase, or is it a new project in itself?
So this is a new project. Given that infrastructure is a key constraint here in Papua New Guinea, after completing the road maintenance and rehabilitation project phase 2, we put together another package of $100 million that is going to help improve infrastructure, particularly to upgrade about 53 kilometers of road in the Hilitano-Ramu highway area, but also rehabilitate about 200 other kilometers in Papua New Guinea.
Thank you, Khwima. We now go for a quick break. Join us on the other side for more discussions. Welcome back. You're watching Infocus. In the studio with me, we have Mr. Khwima Nthara, Country Manager for the Worldbank. Khwima, the Worldbank has recently allocated about 40 million US dollars, which is approximately about 142 million kina, towards the PNG Agriculture Commercialization and Diversification Project. Can you give us a brief overview of this particular project?
Thank you very much, Malcolm. This is a project that we're also very excited about. As I mentioned earlier, this is a country that has got immense potential in the resource sectors, but also in the non-resource sectors. And indeed, this agriculture commercialization and diversification project aims to work with the government in trying to improve productivity in the agriculture sector in very key value chains: coffee, cocoa, spices, small livestock. The aim is really to help farmers have access also to markets. And what we're trying to do is, because in Papua New Guinea, given this immense potential, there is also a challenge of access to markets. So what we're trying to do is to help the farmers get together, connect them to the large off-takers, but also support feeder roads as well, so that they are able to produce more of these crops, they are able to process them, add value, but they're also able to have access to markets, not just within Papua New Guinea, but also in the export markets. I hear you've got probably some of the best coffee in this country, and I've sampled some already. This is something that we really would like to support a lot, so that we're able to improve incomes for the people, but also give a chance to some of the young people to get into agriculture.
I mean, agriculture is quite a very complex industry and quite a large industry in itself. There are so many different commodities and agricultural produce, as well as livestock products, or I would say goods offered by the sector. So from your perspective, what are some of the key challenges, or some main challenges confronting the agriculture sector in Papua New Guinea?
I think one of the first key challenges is that productivity is very low. And productivity is low, meaning that, for example, per hectare of cocoa or coffee, more could be produced than is currently the case. And what it requires is being able to have access to new and improved methods of production, technology, practices. That's the first challenge. The second is access to markets. Part of it is because of poor road connectivity, and part of it is also because of lack of information, standards to be able to produce crops that meet international standards, especially when you're thinking of the export market. And this is why this project that we are supporting is trying to solve these challenges.
To another critical sector that the World Bank also provides support with is the health sector. The health sector has been a major development challenge, but also a very priority for a lot of governments, both present and in the past. So, in what capacity is the World Bank assisting the health sector within the country?
So, as a partner for the government in development, we're here to provide financing, just like in the other sectors, but also we're here to provide knowledge in terms of what works better based on the experience that the World Bank has had in other countries. With regards to financing, currently we've got 4 projects. We've got a COVID emergency project, we've got a TB emergency project, we've got a project that is also supporting improved nutrition, and then we've got also a project that is helping improve systems of delivery, especially in the rural areas, improving the rural health facilities so that they're better stocked, training village health assistants so that they complement the traditional health workers to be able to go in the villages, in households, to also teach people about some of the new behaviors around nutritional status, for example. So there's a whole range of areas that we are working with the government on with financing. But like I said, we are also trying to bring in knowledge of what are some of the interventions that have worked in other countries through the experience that we've had in those countries. And so it's in that regard that we're really partnering very closely with the government through the National Department of Health.
COVID-19 is currently a global threat, a global pandemic. It's very much a part of life and confronting our societies. Another specific threat or a particular threat would be the threat of climate change. So I'm curious to know, are there interventions or programs which the World Bank supports in climate change within the country?
For now, we don't have a financing project, but we've been involved in discussions with the government authorities in terms of how in future we can support maybe with even financing. But what we're doing now is to work very closely with the government in terms of understanding some of the challenges that Papua New Guinea is facing in terms of adaptation to climate change, but also what Papua New Guinea can do to help with the reductions in emissions, so mitigation. We know that issues of emission reduction has principally been for the richer countries, but Papua New Guinea government is committed also to doing its part. But I think what is most key for the government for now has been adaptation. So we're working to understand what are some of the interventions that we can support with financing going forward as we continue in our partnership.
Thank you, Khwima. We now go for a quick break. When we return, we look at the Papua New Guinea's country economic memorandum. Welcome back. You're watching Infocus. Khwima, recently the World Bank presented the Papua New Guinea's country economic memorandum titled Pathways to Faster and More Inclusive Growth. What are some of its key focus areas from this particular report?
Thank you very much, Malcolm. Before I answer that question, let me just re-emphasize one point. And this is that as an institution, we do not only just provide financing to the government or to our member countries, but we also would like to be known as a knowledge institution where we are able to do analytical work to be able to provide advice to the government in areas where things are working well and where more can be done for our member countries to realize their full potential. It's in that context that we prepared this country economic memorandum. It's a report, a very comprehensive report that we use in many countries to try and analyze what are the key challenges to growth, and especially to growth that can be broadly shared by the population. Now, the particular country economic memorandum for Papua New Guinea that we just launched recently makes an observation that Papua New Guinea has been doing very well over the last 40 years in terms of growth. GDP growth, the economy has grown on average by 3.2% over the last 40 years. However, there is a problem in the sense that per capita income has only grown by 0.9%. What this means is that while the economy has been growing, population has been growing at a faster rate, such that the welfare of the people, the livelihoods of the people have not improved at the same pace as the economy has grown. That's really the main finding of the country economic memorandum. And then what the report does is to now look at what have been the key challenges. Why has this been the case? In fact, the report also, I should mention, says that not only has growth in Papua New Guinea not translated to a significant improvement in the welfare of the people, but that Papua New Guinea has lagged some of its peers in making that progress. So, what have been some of the challenges? It identifies 3 key challenges. The first is that the environment, especially when it comes to public expenditure, has been very inconsistent. So revenues have been going up and down. Expenditures have also been going up and down. When you have such a situation, it becomes very difficult for the government to consistently keep on spending in the key areas of services to be able to keep up with the growing population. The second challenge has been that the economy as a whole has not been efficient in its production. In particular, it has not fully utilized its people. As a result, while it's been growing, but it's not been growing as much as it should have by utilizing all its resources. For example, the report finds that while 50% of men in Papua New Guinea are in employment, only 30% of women are participating in gainful employment. In other words, it's underutilizing a very key resource. And the study shows that, in fact, if you were to close that gender gap, if more women were able to participate in gainful employment, whether wage employment or businesses, PNG's economy would grow by almost 20%. In other words, the pace would be faster and it would be more inclusive. In the case of gender participation, gender equality, what this means is that getting women to participate in the economy is not just the right thing to do, but it's also a very smart thing to do from a development perspective. The third challenge that the country economic memorandum identifies is that Papua New Guinea can expand the endowment of its resources. So yes, there are some people now who are not participating in the economy, but it can actually also generate more in terms of its endowment, especially its human capital. Currently, the economy is heavily dependent on natural resources, but it hasn't invested much in human capital. The experience we have in other countries that are like Papua New Guinea, well endowed in natural resources, is that they've utilized the natural resources better to improve human capital, to improve infrastructure, because the extractive sectors have a lifespan. So Papua New Guinea now has an opportunity with 5 projects, for example, in the pipeline. What it needs to do is take full advantage of that opportunity, especially to also fully utilize the potential of the young people in this country. I've been very, very, very impressed with the potential that this country has in its young people. The country needs to expand its endowment, especially by investing in early education, because this is where it's going to be able to build a foundation for future employers. Investment in health, so that the population is healthy. As economic opportunities are created, people are able to take full advantage of these opportunities. Those are the key messages of the country economic memorandum.
Finally, Khwima, How applicable and relatable is the memorandum to the recently launched Medium-Term Development Plan 4, which was recently launched by the government?
Thank you very much, Malcolm. In fact, I would say very much relevant. It couldn't have come at a better time. As you know, the Medium-Term Development Plan number 4 has outlined the government's strategic priority areas, 12 of them. And what we see is that the recommendations coming out of the country economic memorandum will help operationalize most of these strategic priority areas. So, for example, the medium-term development plan seeks to create 1 million jobs over the next couple of years. The recommendations that come out of the country economic memorandum, for example, in encouraging the government to improve a business environment so that it can create more opportunities for jobs, will contribute towards the creation of those jobs. And the same in the social sectors, be it in health, be it in education.
Thank you, Khwima. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Before we go, I'd like to take this time to thank our special guest, Mr. Khwima Nthara, Country Manager for the Worldbank Group in Papua New Guinea. Khwima, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Malcolm.
That's all the time we have for this edition of Infocus. Join us again next week Monday for another edition of Infocus. Till then, good night from us.